My name is Loretta Pryor. I am 46 years old. I have cut hair on the square in Ackerman Springs, Georgia for 24 years. That means I generally know what somebody in this town is going to say about a minute before they say it. The third Saturday in August, my mother's 76th birthday, in her kitchen out on Coley Mill Road, with the cake still boxed on the counter and 11 of us standing around because there are only 6 chairs. My sister Deanna set a brown paper grocery sack on the table in front of me and folded her hands. "You already took yours, Loretta," Deanna said. She did not lower her voice for it. She never has. "Mama's house money is going where it's needed. That's Marvin's too, and that's my too, and that's the truth of it. You already took yours 9 years ago, and I have got the paper." 9 years of that sentence, and she got all of it into a grocery sack. I did not argue with her. You do not win an argument with my sister. You only give her something to repeat. I picked the sack up off the table and I said, "Thank you, Deanna," and I carried it out to my car. 2 weeks later, Deanna called a meeting in the fellowship hall at Pine Level Baptist to finish it. 4 women stood up one at a time. The 4th one was our mother. Welcome back to Thistlebank Stories, where the overlooked finally get back what's theirs. Let me back up. The Rosewater is 2 chairs, a shampoo bowl, and a backroom unit whose compressor has got one more August in it if I am lucky. It sits between the insurance office and what used to be a shoe store. I have owned it 19 years, and I still owe the credit union $18,940 on it. Yvonne Deal over there has my note and my phone number and my whole life in a folder. I keep my appointment book in pencil. Always have. There is a box in my back room with 24 years of them in it. Give me a date and I can tell you who sat in my chair that morning, and roughly what we talked about. Nobody should mistake that for a talent. It comes with the job. A woman gets in my chair. I put my hands in her hair, and inside of 4 minutes, she is telling me about her husband's blood pressure and her daughter-in-law. You learn the difference between what a woman asks for and what she actually wants. Most of the time, those are 2 different haircuts. Nadine Cobb has been my Thursday 9 o'clock for 20 years. She's 74. She gets a wash and set, and she does not care for conversation until the 2nd cup. My daddy was Ray Pryor. He ran Pryor Body and Paint out on Highway 41 for 31 years, and there is not a fender in this county he did not touch at some point. He died 9 years ago this August. Nadine Cobb kept his books for 19 of those 31 years, which is a thing I want you to hold on to. There are 3 of us. Deanna is the oldest, 49. She lives outside Marietta, works for a hospital foundation, and drives down the first Sunday of the month. Marvin is the baby, 43, and he is not a bad man. He is just a man who agrees with whoever is standing closest. And there is me. Divorced 11 years, no children, 20 minutes away. The week Daddy died, I could not have told you my own phone number. Deese Brothers handled everything, and Deanna handled Deese Brothers, and I signed whatever anybody put in front of me on that little table in the family room. Death certificates, the obituary, whatever it was. I remember the pen had the funeral home's name up the side of it, and it kept skipping. Deanna was named executor of the estate, and nobody argued about that either. She was the one with the good handwriting and the calm voice. I was about 45 minutes from being the person who had to pick out the flowers. Before I go on, do me a favor and tell me in the comments what town this is finding you in. I like to know who is in the room with me. Because for 9 years since in this family, there has been one settled fact about me. This past spring is when they started collecting on it. The first one was in March and it took 11 weeks. Mama had a fall in February. Nothing broke. But after that, the house on Coley Mill Road stopped being a place one woman could live in by herself, and everybody agreed she ought to go to Wynwood Place over in Talmadge. Deanna handled the business side. Deanna always handles the business side. That means Deanna made the calls where somebody says, "Of course, ma'am," back to her. I handled the rest of it. I drove Mama to the cardiologist in Macon twice and to the eye doctor once. I sat on the floor of that back bedroom 4 Saturdays running, going through a chifforobe one drawer at a time. I held things up so she could tell me from the bed whether they went in the keep pile. Most of it she could not decide about. That is the part nobody warns you about. It is not the big furniture. It is a woman looking at a shoebox of rickrack for 2 full minutes and then saying, "Well, your daddy liked that shirt." I filled out the Winwood packet, all 19 pages of it, including the section on her supplemental insurance policy and the long-term care rider Daddy bought in 1994. That took 2 afternoons and a phone call to a claims office in Jacksonville, where I sat on hold long enough to sweep the shop. I closed the salon on a Tuesday, which I do not do, and drove Mama over for the walkthrough. The director was a nice young woman with a clipboard, and she went down her list the way they do. She got to emergency contacts and she read them back to us. Primary Deanna Halcomb, then a Marietta number. Secondary sister and my number. Sister, not daughter. My sister had filled that form out at her own kitchen table in Marietta and put down what I was to her. I did not correct it in front of Mama. I have been not correcting things in front of Mama my whole life. I told the young woman it all looked right, and I signed at the bottom. Then I drove home, cut 2 heads of hair, and did not tell one living soul. The second one was in June, and it lasted about 10 seconds. They had the estate sale for the house contents on a Saturday. I did not want much. I wanted the clock. It is a shop clock about 14 inches across, black hands, plain white face. It hung over the parts counter at Pryor Body and Paint for 31 years. It runs 4 minutes fast. It has run 4 minutes fast since 1988, and Daddy would not have it fixed because he said those 4 minutes were the only reason anybody in that shop ever got anything done on time. I asked Deanna for it in May on the phone, and I made myself ask plain instead of hinting. "Deanna, when y'all clear the house, I'd like Daddy's clock." "Well, it's not really worth anything, Loretta." I said I knew that. "I'll put it on the list," Deanna said. I asked her again the Thursday before the sale, and she said she had it written down. I came by on the Saturday morning, and it was gone off the wall. Deanna had given it to Marvin's boy for his room. "He's the one carrying the name," Deanna said. I want to be fair because I have thought about this a great deal since. Marvin's boy is 15. He did not ask for it. He had nothing to do with any of it. He hung it in his room, and he has it still, and I hope he keeps it. But I stood in that empty front room looking at the square of clean paint where a clock had hung for 31 years. And I am going to tell you something about myself that I am not proud of. What I felt was not grief. It was arithmetic. I had started keeping score, and I did not want to be a woman who kept score, and I was one anyway. The third one was in July at the church supper, and it is the one I am still not over. Pine Level does a covered dish the 3rd Wednesday of the month. 35 women in that fellowship hall, and I have had my hands in the hair of better than half of them. Deanna came down for it because she was in town about the closing on the house. At the end of the long table, she got to talking about how hard it all was settling Daddy's estate, and how she had tried her level best to be fair to everybody. Then she said it in the voice she keeps for a grocery list. "We settled everything the week of the funeral," Deanna said. Loretta got hers first, bless her heart, signed for it herself. 46,000 and change. That's how she's got the shop. I was standing at the end of that table with a pan of squash casserole in both hands. Here is the part that does the damage. Nobody gasped. Nobody looked at me sideways. 30 women took that and set it down next to everything else they already knew about me and went back to their plates. Marlene Utt said something about the heat. That is how a thing like that works. It does not arrive as an accusation. It arrives as a settled fact mentioned in passing, and it goes into 30 people at once, and not one of them will ever bring it up to your face where you could answer it. If you have ever had somebody say something untrue about you in a room where correcting it would only make you look worse, then you already know what I did. I put the casserole down. I said the squash needed another minute. I went and stood by the kitchen door. Comment, I know, if you have ever been the one who had to be gracious about a lie. I set my pan out, and I stayed 40 more minutes because leaving early would have been its own kind of answer. Then I drove home and sat in the car in my own driveway with the engine off. And then it started showing up in the book. That is the part I did not expect. Sherry Nance moved to every 8 weeks instead of every 6. The Pittman girls started driving to Talmadge for their color. Ruby Odell called and left a message saying she was going to try something different for a while, and Ruby Odell has had the same haircut since the first Bush administration. Nobody said one word to me. Nobody would. They just quit sitting in a chair that belonged to a woman who took $46,000 off her own dying daddy. 6 appointments in 5 weeks. I know the number because I keep the book in pencil and because I sat in the back room one night in July and counted the erasures. The 4th one came the first week of August, and it came as a spreadsheet. Deanna sent it to the 3 of us. Subject line, Mama's house, proposed split. The house on Coley Mill Road was under contract. After the realtor and the payoff and Winwood's deposit, there was going to be a number left, and Deanna had laid out where it went in a table with a total row at the bottom. Marvin's 2 children college funds. Deanna's 2 children college funds, and a line for me with a figure already sitting in it, $46,317. Beside it, in the column she had labeled, Notes Received 2016 Estate Distribution. I read that email 4 times standing at my shampoo bowl. I typed a reply that night, and I did not send it. I typed another one Sunday, and I did not send that one either. Both of them started with the word Deanna. Neither one had anywhere to go. Everything I wanted to say came down to, that is not true, and I could not put one single thing behind it. Then Marvin replied to all of us at 6:41 the next morning, and my brother wrote 2 words. Sounds fair. That is the one that put me on the floor of my own back room. Not Deanna. Deanna has been Deanna since I was 6 years old. Marvin used to ride out to the shop with me in the bed of Daddy's truck. Marvin looked at a table with my name in it and did not ask me one question. Mama's birthday was the 3rd Saturday. 11 of us in that kitchen, and only 6 chairs, so the ones who could stand stood. I had done Mama's hair that morning. I do it every Tuesday and every Thursday and every birthday in her own kitchen with a towel around her shoulders and my good scissors out of my purse. 76 years old, and she has better hair than I do. I brought the cake in a box from the Piggly Wiggly because she likes theirs better than anything I could make, and she has never been shy about saying so. Cliff Deanna's husband was out on the carport on his phone. Marvin's boy had the ball game going low in the front room. It was 96 degrees at 4 in the afternoon, and every one of us had a church fan going. The cardboard kind with Deese Brothers Funeral Home printed on the back. That is a thing you do not think about until you think about it. Deanna waited until Mama had opened the card from the church. Then she got her folder out of that big handbag and set it on the table. She said she wanted to get the business part done while everybody was together, so nobody had to hear it secondhand. She went through the split. The realtor, the payoff, Winwood, the number left, Marvin's 2, her 2. Then she reached down beside her chair and put a brown paper grocery sack on the table and pushed it about 4 inches toward me. You already took yours, Loretta, Deanna said. Mama's house money is going where it's needed. That's Marvin's 2, and that's my 2, and that's the truth of it. You already took yours 9 years ago, and I have got the paper. I said, what's in the sack, Deanna? She said it was my things out of Mama's closet, some pictures, my old confirmation Bible, a hot roller set I have not seen since 1998. And then she said the other thing. She said it kindly, which is the part that will not wash out. It's not a slight, honey, Deanna said. It's just that you don't have anybody to spend it on anyway. Here is what I want you to picture. My mother is at the head of that table, 76 years old, in the blouse I ironed for her, with a birthday card from Pine Level Baptist open in front of her. And she is looking at the oilcloth. Not at Deanna, not at me. At the table. I have thought about that look for a long time now. At the time, I read it as embarrassment, because that is what it looks like from the outside. Marvin studied a ball game he could not see from where he was sitting. I did not raise my voice, and I want to be honest with you about why. It was not that I am a better woman than my sister. It was that there were 11 people in that kitchen, and every one of them already knew the answer. If I had started swinging, the only thing I would have proved is that I was the kind of woman who would. So I picked up the paper sack. I said, "Thank you, Deanna." I told my mother happy birthday and kissed the top of her head, and I got my scissors off the counter and went out the side door. I sat in my car in that driveway a while with the sack on the passenger seat. Then I did the only useful thing I could think of. I drove to the shop, unlocked it, went in the back room, and pulled the box of appointment books. I found August of 9 years ago, 3rd Saturday, the day we buried my father. And in my own pencil in my own hand, the whole page struck through, and one word written across the middle of it. Daddy. That is all I had. 9 years, $46,000, 30 women at a church supper, and my entire case was one word in pencil. I gave myself the weekend to feel sorry for myself. Monday, I went to Deese Brothers. Wade Deese runs it now. His father buried mine. He is about my age. He was 2 years behind me at Talmadge County, and he is a decent man. He sat me down in the same little family room. I do not think he thought about that at all, and I could not think about anything else. I asked whether the file from that August was still there. It was. He went and got it. And that is where it stopped being what I hoped it was. Wade turned the folder around on the table so I could see it, and there were my signatures, 4 of them. The certificate request, the obituary authorization, a release for the vault, and a 4th form, a single page that I could not have described to you under oath, with my name written across the bottom in handwriting that was unmistakably mine on a bad week. That one's the estate's Loretta, Wade said, not the funeral home's. Your sister's the executor. I can't give you a copy of an estate document without her, and I'd be wrong to. I said I understood. And I did understand. And that is the worst part of it. I asked whether he remembered anything about that week. Wade said he was 29 that year, and mostly parking cars. I called Sylvia Roan's office in Talmadge from the parking lot. A young man there was perfectly polite. He told me that, as an heir, I was entitled to an accounting once the estate closed. Anything before that went through the executor. Did I want him to leave a message for Mrs. Halcombe? I said, no thank you, that would not be necessary. So I drove back to the square and opened up. I did a color at 11 and a cut at 1. Somewhere in between, I made my peace with it. I was not going to be able to prove this. Not ever. My own signature was on the thing. If you have ever gone looking for proof that you are not the person somebody says you are and come home without it, then you know that quiet. It is the one in a car on the way back. It is not anger. It is a tiredness that sits down in your chest and takes its shoes off. Let me say this to every one of you who has spent a long stretch being the one nobody thanks. I had it exactly backwards, and I had it backwards for 9 years. I thought what I needed was a piece of paper. What I actually had was a town. Thursday morning, 9 o'clock, Nadine Cobb came in for her wash and set. I got her under the dryer and brought her the second cup because Nadine does not care for conversation until the second cup. She took it and looked at me over the top of her glasses. You've been ugly quiet for 3 weeks, Nadine said. So I told her. Not all of it, just the sack and the number and the church supper. Nadine set that cup down on my station. Loretta, I kept your daddy's books 19 years. Deanna had me help her put the estate inventory together that fall, because I was the only one alive who could read Ray's accounts. I said I knew that. Then hear me, Nadine said. That check got cut. But it did not clear in August, honey. It cleared in February. I did not understand her at first, and I want to be honest about that, too. I stood there with a comb in my hand, and I said, February of what? And Nadine Cobb, 74 years old, under a dryer with a towel around her neck, said it again. February after. 6 months past your daddy's funeral. 6 months past the day your sister stood in that family room and told your mama it was already done. Deanna called the meeting herself. That is the part I would like you to keep hold of through all of this. Nobody made her do it. The house had closed, the money was sitting in the estate account, and Sylvia Rowan wanted every heir to sign a receipt and release before anything got dispersed. Deanna could have mailed me a form. Instead, she booked the fellowship hall at Pine Level for a Tuesday evening at 6. She asked Brother Denton Wiggs to open with prayer. She told the family it would be easier on everybody to hear it all in one place. She wanted witnesses. She has always done better with witnesses. Freeze that room for me a second. 8 folding tables pushed into a square. Deanna at the head of it with her folder, Sylvia Roan beside her. Cliff. Marvin and his wife. Mama in the good chair somebody had carried in from the nursery with a church fan going. Brother Wiggs. And down at the far end, me, with nothing at all in front of me. Along the wall in the folding chairs, 7 or 8 women from the circle. They had been in that kitchen since 4 o'clock, putting away the potluck from Wednesday, and nobody had asked them to leave. Sylvia Roan explained the receipt and release. Deanna went through the split again. Then she came to my line and she said it for the last time. Loretta received her distribution in August of 2016, Deanna said. $46,317, signed for. It's in the file. And Nadine Cobb stood up out of a folding chair against the wall. She did not raise her voice either. That whole family gets loud, and Nadine Cobb has never once been loud in her life. Deanna, I put that inventory together with you. That check cleared the estate account in February, not August. I have got no reason on this earth to say that except that it is so. Deanna said Mrs. Cobb was confused about the year. Nadine said she had done books for 41 years and had never once been confused about a February. Then Dovey-Ann Rakes stood up. Dovey-Ann worked visitations at Deese Brothers for 22 years, and she has been in my chair every 6 weeks since her husband passed. I was on that night, Dovey-Ann said. I carried the coffee in. And I am going to say this in front of the pastor because I have wished for 9 years that I had said it then. Deanna, you brought a folder into the family room during your daddy's visitation. You put papers in front of your sister and she signed them with people still coming through the door. I thought at the time that is not how any of this is done. The room got very quiet. Then Yvonne Deal stood up from the credit union and she held up a single sheet. Loretta signed a release for me to be here and say one thing, Yvonne said. One thing only. Loretta Pryor has made a payment on that shop every month since 2004. She has never missed one, and she has never paid it down early. Not in 2016, not in 2017. She sat back down. That is all I am permitted to say, and it is all I need to. Deanna turned to Sylvia Roan and said something about slander. Sylvia Roan did not answer her. I watched a lawyer take her hand off a folder and put it in her lap. And then my mother said my sister's name. Deanna. Everybody looked. Eunice Pryor is 76 years old. She was holding that church fan flat in her lap with both hands. The bank called this house that October, Mama said. A lady from Marietta. She wanted Deanna about an account, and I told her Deanna didn't live here anymore, and I read her the number off the wall. She looked down at the table. And then she did not. I have known 9 years, Mama said. I have known since October, and I never said one word, and I want everybody in this room to hear why, because it is not a good reason. Deanna calls me every Sunday evening at 6. Loretta is here twice a week, and she is going to be here anyway. She put her hand flat on the fan. I was afraid that if I said it out loud, the Sunday calls would stop. So I let this town believe a thing about my own child for 9 years to keep a telephone ringing. Nobody said anything for a while. Marvin got up and went outside and did not come back for 20 minutes. Here is what came of it, and I'm going to give it to you in order. Sylvia Rohn withdrew as attorney for the estate that night, in that room, in one sentence. 2 weeks later, the estate was reopened in Talmadge County Probate Court. Deanna was removed as executor. Marvin would not take it on, so the court appointed a fiduciary out of Macon, which cost the estate money and was worth every dollar of it. She repaid the $46,317 plus 9 years of statutory interest under a court-approved settlement. The whole of it came to a little over $71,000. She borrowed against the house in Marietta to do it, and Cliff learned all of it from the attorney because she had never told her own husband either. The district attorney's office looked at it and declined to charge her. I want to say plainly that I am at peace with that. I did not go through any of this to put my sister in a courtroom. I went through it because 30 women at a covered dish believed something about me. And here is the aftershock, which I did not see until that fiduciary in Macon laid the dates out side by side for me. Deanna did not take that money and then invent a story to cover it. She told the story first. She stood in the family room at Deese Brothers in August with her daddy in the next room and told her mother that everything was settled and Loretta had been taken care of. There was less money in that estate than anybody had expected, and my sister could not stand to be the one who came up short in front of Mama. Then she had 6 months to sit with a lie she had already said out loud in front of people. And in February, she went and made it true. I paid off the credit union with part of mine. Yvonne Deal let me sign the last page in person instead of mailing it, which I appreciated more than she knows. Marvin brought me the clock. He drove it over to the shop in a Piggly Wiggly bag about a month after. He stood in my doorway holding it and could not get a sentence to come out, and I let him not get it out. His boy had said it ought to go where Aunt Loretta could see it. 15 years old. Sometimes it skips a generation. It hangs over my station now. It still runs 4 minutes fast, and I am not having it fixed. Deanna and I are not reconciled. I do not know that we will be, and I have quit lying to myself about the odds. She sends a card at Christmas. I send one back. That is what we have, and I am not going to dress it up for you. Mama moved into Wynwood in September. I go Tuesdays and Thursdays and do her hair in the common room, and about half the time somebody else is waiting when I finish, so I do theirs too. The Sunday calls did stop for a while. They started again in the spring. If you have ever wondered whether it is worth telling the truth about yourself when you have no way on earth to prove it, I will tell you how it went for me. I never did get a piece of paper. I still do not have one. What I had was Nadine Cobb, who kept books 41 years and was never once confused about a February. A woman who carried coffee at a visitation. A loan officer with one sentence she was allowed to say. And my mother, who was more afraid than she was ashamed, right up until she wasn't. You do not build that in 2 weeks. You build it 30 minutes at a time in a chair for 24 years. Without ever once knowing you are building anything. Nadine still comes at 9 o'clock on Thursdays. She still will not talk to me until the second cup. If this one found you somewhere in the middle of your own long story, stay a while. I have more of them, and I would like to know where you are listening from.